What's up, guys, and welcome to another edition of Medicine4Melanin presents How You Are Healing with Spry Lee Scott. I am your host, Spry Lee Scott, and I'm excited about tonight's guest, Davina Davidson. But before we get into her and before we bring her on, I want to just make sure you guys are sharing this video. If you are watching this on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can get this and so much more. You can also go back and listen to last week's conversation with our guest Elton Anderson, who is like dropping some jewels. So y'all can go and check that out. But again, make sure you subscribe to our channel here and also like and share and let your friends know that we are here in this community. And if you are looking at us on Facebook, make sure you join our community by, I think, what do you do? Like it, follow us on Facebook, and then make sure if you're watching this tonight, share it right now. 5 seconds. Okay, good. Y'all should be sharing it. So make sure you go and share this video with your friends, with your family members, whether you like it or not. If you hate it, share it, and y'all have some conversation behind the scenes. And till make sure you put all your unliking us comments in the box so that we could get some more views on this. But I want to bring in our guest this week. This is, again, How Y'all Healing, where we talk to Black and brown professionals working in health and wellness, talking about their healing journey and what they are doing to heal our communities. And tonight I have a guest who dropped a bomb on me maybe 5 seconds before we started the broadcast, but it is what it is, and I'm glad she did, because we're gonna talk about it. So without further ado, I want to bring in our guest, Davina Davidson. What's up, Davina?
Hello. How are you?
I am amazing, and I want to just say thank you again for joining us tonight on this episode. Thank you for taking the time out, and thank you for just blowing my mind 5 seconds ago. But we're gonna talk about that. You are a wellness advocate, which I love, and part of the reason I love it is because I am new in this space of health and wellness, and we have so many different titles that I hear. And and the great thing about, for me, for 2021, is that we get to choose who we want to be, right? And that's something that we weren't taught growing up. It was like, no, you gotta go and you either gonna be a doctor, a lawyer. It was all of these professions and these titles that were already out there, and we had to pick and choose that. And so now we have this opportunity to say, look, this is what I do, and this is what I am. This is my title. Right. So let's just talk about that first. Let's start with that. What is a wellness advocate?
So a wellness advocate, from my perspective, is someone who does what is necessary to provide wellness holistic techniques for community, and that means making it accessible, whether it's per location and actually getting people to the places, or if it is making it financially accessible and offering discounts, or even just free services, which I do through my nonprofit. And I will say that I saw a title actually the other day that I was like, excuse me, I need that one. And my friend calls herself a wellness disruptor. She's disrupting what we think is wellness and what it looks like. And we need that, especially BIPOC individuals, because when we think of wellness, we often look towards non-BIPOC people or white people, if I'm just being straightforward, as like they're the standard for being well.
Exactly.
So shake it up.
Right. So, and I think that's the perfect segue for to talk about wellness disruption, because you just disrupted all my plans tonight. Well, not all of them, because it's still a conversation. But we talked about, excuse me, Um, you know, that family member that calls at the wrong, exactly at the wrong time. But anyway, disruption. We're in sync. We're aligned. So, but you disrupted, you just blew my mind basically because I met you through yoga and we'll talk about that. But you, and from my perspective, you were this powerhouse or you are this powerhouse in the yoga community. And I was ready to talk some yoga stuff. And you were like, well, you know, I don't practice yoga. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Where was I? Was I in Morocco when you made this announcement? So let's start with that. What led, so my first question was what led you to yoga? But before we get to that, let's talk about what led you away from yoga.
Yeah. Well, God actually did both in terms of leading me to and away from the practice. And what I kind of arrived at in January is something, it was like, you're done. You've learned everything that you need to learn. You have suffered enough. You have learned enough. It's time to walk away. And, you know, people who specifically met me during the BLM training, which was what like this crazy, amazing experience. They didn't necessarily know me prior to that. And so I would share that I have been complaining or speaking of the things that I didn't agree with in the yoga industry for at least 3 or 4 years. And I have old videos of it on my social media that I had shared about these things, whether it was from the pay, whether it was from the racism, whether it was from just all these different things that I was complaining about. And it got to the point where I was in a place of continuous suffering and I was choosing it. Instead of saying like, this is not for me anymore. I'm done, walk away. And so in January, I had what I would call as a spiritual awakening that was just like, you're done. You're done. And what I tried to explain to people as I shared my testimony, because it was very dramatic for people, and it was for me as well, is that, you know, a lot of people don't understand what yoga is, and we look at the surface of what the practice is. And so because I had been doing it for a long time, I went a little deep. Went real deep actually. And so if you think about what this highest level of experiencing yoga is this, you know, non-attachment, and like you don't need the thing. And so it was like, I have arrived. Like that moment of enlightenment happened for me January 19th. It was like, and you're done. It wasn't like, and you don't even know when you experience enlightenment, it's moments of ahas. Like it could be just a snippet of a moment. And you're like, oh, you know? And so for me, it was like, I had a moment and God was like, you're done. And I said, okay, I'm done.
Now, I've had those moments too. And especially on this spiritual walk that we do, this spiritual journey that we're consistently on. You know, one of the things we talk about here at Medicine4Melanin is that healing is not a destination, but it's a continuous journey. So where we are today is different from where we were 5 years ago, and where we will be 5 years from now is going to be different from where we are today because it's continuous. But when you say you had this aha moment, were there other signs along the way that kind of was like, okay, Davina, stop doing this. Like, this may not be your thing.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I shared in my testimony, which was that in 2017, I had a series of events that happened kind of back to back, kind of traumatic events. And I felt like in hindsight, and even while I was experiencing them, they were opportunities for me to just walk away. And for whatever reason, I chose to stay within the industry. One was about with something that I thought was a heart attack, but it was costochondritis. And it affected me for 2 years later. Every time that I did a movement, every time that I did a yoga pose, I felt it.
All
And
right. So
after,
can you just tell us what carbochondritis is?
yeah, so costochondritis is inflammation in the costal region in your sternum. And so what happens is that cartilage gets inflamed and the rib cage, the ribs kind of slip is what it feels like. And so for me, what happened is I woke up one day and I thought my rib cage, my sternum was like to the side of me. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And then later, like the next day, I went to go reach my arms up. And when I reached my arms up, I literally like collapsed. It was very weird. And my children were right there. My children were in the living room. And I was like, let me go to the emergency room. And I played it off like, hey, I'm just going
Right.
over here, call grandma. You know, my son was a little bit older, so it was fine. But still, it mimics a heart attack. You have all of this
Okay.
action. And so, yeah, it's just inflammation.
Okay, so you had this fake heart attack,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
then was that like, oh well, just nothing. Let me keep on going.
Yeah, it was like, well, what I realized is like I was holding a lot of tension or anxiety around. I worked for a yoga studio where it was like a husband and wife, and then I was on the leadership team. I ran the 7 studios. This is the powerhouse Davina, right? So like I'm managing all these yoga teachers and leading teacher trainings and doing all these things, living the best life, like living great. And something in my spirit was like, something's not right. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that something wasn't right. And we had some instances with the owners, or I had some instances with the owners where I was like, okay, they're not telling me something that I need to know. And what happened is actually I was coming back from Morocco from a trip, and the husband sent me like this long email and was like basically kind of blaming me for like the weirdness in our relationship. And I was like, what? And then that week they brought us all, the leadership team and all the managers, to a lunch. And they were like, congratulations, we sold the company. So they sold all 7 locations to YogaWorks, which is this corporation. Without telling us. They said that we had to sign our contracts within 2 hours, and then it was like 24 hours in order to get paid for your next paycheck. So I'm a single mother, and I was like, what?
So sign a contract with YogaWorks now.
Yes. And it was like, nothing's going to change. And it was like, everything's going to be the same, and everything changed. Everything changed. And I mean, at one point I was offered 3 times less than what I made leading the same exact training the year before. And I was like, no. So there were a lot of things, and I was holding on. I think what was really funny is going into 2020, I was like, I'm going to finish these trainings the first half of the year that I have on my schedule, and then I'm done.
Oh yeah, you were like everybody else, had all these plans. 2020, my year.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, I'm going to start Be Well, and I'm on my way. Yoga will be I'll still do yoga, but it'll be on the back burner. It won't be like my primary source of income, blah, blah, blah. And then Carson hits me up in a text message with Ahmed and Brandon.
Okay. Now, for those of the listeners who do not know who a Carson or a Brandon or a Ahmed is, who are these people and why is this so significant?
These are, whether we are that today, these are my Rocket brothers. These are individuals that I trained with in Rocket Yoga. Carson was actually he assisted every Rocket training that I attended. And sometimes we co-assisted our teacher. And then Brandon and Ahmed, I met them at some of those trainings that I went to. So I met them through the Rocket training world. They're yoga teachers and trainers.
Right. And so they hit you up to in the and again, this was in the middle of a pandemonium. So they hit you up to do what?
To initially, it was Carson had been leading the previous month, had been leading a training via Facebook, and he was like, loved the model that he was using. Besides Carson, or outside of Carson, I was the only other person who had led teacher trainings. I had been leading teacher trainings for about 7 years at that point. He said, hey, this model works. Let's do it. Let's do something for the Black community. And I don't remember exactly what the number was, what we started with. It was either 50 or 100 people is what we committed to. And teaching once or twice a week is what we committed to.
And that's probably where I became a little more familiar with you and the team, because it went from what you said, 50 to 100 people once or twice a week to over 2,000 people that signed up, and where it was classes daily, like a couple of times a day actually. And and the BLM yoga training was an opportunity to bring in more specifically Black yoga teachers and train them to come into this yoga, this lackluster, for lack of better terms, this yoga space that, and I don't want to say lackluster, but this space that was that lacks us, that lacks Black presence, and so you guys started that, and so what was that like when you realized that it was way more or way over your head than what you thought?
Well, I'll just share that in the days leading up to the actual training, Carson was promoting the training on his personal page, and he happened to say some things that triggered a Black woman. She's actually, I mean, I don't want to say a popular popular Black yoga teacher, but she's a veteran. I'll say that she's a veteran Black yoga teacher. And so basically Carson was asked to mute himself as a white man so that he wasn't showing up as this white savior. And because that's kind of what the promotion was starting to look like for certain people. And I can understand that.
Right.
I knew him personally. So I knew that, he had been my friend for years. He had been Brandon's friend for years, and Ahmed's. So I knew we weren't necessarily dealing with necessarily white saviorism. I thought it was a great idea that he chose to do that in the first place. And I think what happened is miscommunication amongst us, because muting yourself in a training doesn't mean that you remove yourself completely, because anyone who's been leading teacher trainings for any period of time knows that, yes, you have the front-facing side where you have your teachers who are showing up to teach to the students, but there's agendas, there's schedules, there's manuals, there's video uploading, there's Zoom links. There's so much more to leading a training. And Carson was overwhelmed. He had a lot going on, and he absolutely dipped out on us. At one point, it got to the place where, for me, I have high ethical and moral standards, regardless of whether other people agree with that or not. And what triggered me to step in as the Davina that you got to experience was never have I ever taken someone's money and not provided a service. Never. And that's not okay with me. And we were not going to, what happened is we were letting so many people into the training, but they weren't actually being let into the Facebook group. And so what happened is, at one point we had about 400 people who had paid. I don't care if they paid $1.
Right.
But there were people who had donated and were not in the actual Facebook group. And so the structure of the training was crazy town. I would never and have never and would never suggest leading a teacher training through Facebook. And I think I also had to address my ego
Mhm.
because I put a lot on myself unnecessarily. I could have just let it be trash
Mhm.
and been like, well, it is what it is, and not stepped up at all. But that's not who I am. That's not my
Exactly.
character. So it was like, yeah, I was going to take the heat for the like the dysfunction,
Mhm.
the how unorganized it was. Yes, there was a beautiful experience and lots of people connected. I'm still close to people to this day from that training. Like, got to meet and hug them.
Okay.
Like,
Awesome.
yeah,
Okay.
actually, in a pandemonium.
Right.
So I think yeah, that experience for me was quite different than the people who actually experienced it from the student side.
Mhm.
And for me, if I was already at the point in June where I was like, "You're done, sister," I was supposed to be on
Mhm.
sabbatical,
Right.
and here I am acting like a sacrificial, you know what,
Mhm.
and like I have to step in and save the day. I was tripping.
But I think that sometimes when we sometimes we'll make up our mind to do something, and I was in a similar space with doing some work and saying that I was going to leave, and then for whatever reason I was pulled back in because that's what happens. The universe kind of like says, "Come on back, come on back. Let's see if you're really ready to go. Here's some things. Here's some benefits, whatever it is, or here let me and you were on the other end. So with me, it was more so like, here's more money, keep staying. And with you, it was more so like, all right, your name is already on this, so you can't go nowhere. You really want to leave your name? And it's something that you could have walked away from, but
Mhm.
again, we have choices, and so you chose to stay there. But
Mhm.
I'm also a firm believer that there are lessons to be learned in
Mhm.
every single thing that we do, and so you needed to be there in that space in order to gain whatever insight or whatever lesson or whatever opportunity to grow
Mhm.
um, to where you are now.
I 100% don't think that I would have walked away from yoga if I had not experienced the BLM training.
Mhm.
Like that's, and then the BLM collective, Rocket Yoga collective that I created after that would not have, if I had not created that business and continued to work with the BIPOC community, I would have never left. I don't know that I would have ever actually left yoga, but I think that experience took the last bit of the love of the practice that I had out of it. Like being checked every single day because of what I said and not being culturally aware. Yes, I'm like half white, so I shouldn't have probably been leading the training in the first place. I was,
They don't
I
know
mean,
about
I
the
was
1%.
well, you know what? What I will say that I thought was absolutely beautiful about the training is that at one point someone was like, just say black, girl, just say black, we black. And I'm like, yes, we are black. But when you look at the screen, you know for a fact that it's mixed. It's not a, yes, we are all black, that's our root, that's our foundation. But in that training you had black and Asian, black and Hispanic, like it was mixed. It was not just straight, like straight black people. And there were some people who, you know, maybe that was the first time that they ever claimed being black.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
All right. Well, when the opportunities come and
Right. But
you,
it's free.
I know some white folks that was trying to be black to get some certain
Hmm.
opportunities.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you so that experience was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back to make you almost fall out of love, should I say, with yoga. So let's go way back. Let's rewind. What made you fall in love with yoga?
I think, no, I think, I know the first time that I felt connected to Holy Spirit, or that I thought that I heard, you know, God, or not even heard, but felt the presence of God, after a long period of like being out of connection with him because of, life happening, was on my yoga mat. That's the place where I felt most connected to God and the closest to God, which is why I know that I was supposed to find yoga. I know that I was supposed to practice yoga. I'm very aware that this was a part of my journey. Like, this is a part of my testimony and the plan that God had for my life. What I believe is obviously that, I stayed beyond what I was where I was beyond, where I was supposed to stay or whatever the case was. But in any case, I fell in love with the practice because I felt a closeness and a nearness to God. And I found it at a time when I was still a school teacher. I was teaching algebra full time.
Okay.
And I was like, I need this yogurt. Okay. I need to leave school. And not because of the kids, it was the adults that were getting on my nerves. But it was like, I need to go
Always.
be with myself. So yeah, it was beautiful to just like be with myself and then also be still enough to feel connected to God.
And it's so funny that you mentioned that's what led you to it, because you hear so many things, or I've heard so many things about yoga being so ungodly. Well, that's not God, or that whole meditation. I had a family member tell me about meditation one time. I don't know why you meditate. I'm like, I'm talking to God. Like, I'm listening. So
that is hilarious. I cannot believe that you didn't hear any of my testimony or anything, because I literally shared how, because during my journey as a teacher over the last however many years, several people knew that I was a Christian, and they would ask me, like, is it okay? Like, is it all right? Is this of God? And what I would always say is that God created everything, and, he created yoga. Consult God. I don't have the answer for you. Well, when I shared of my testimony, what I shared is that it's important for, if you are a believer in Jesus Christ, not just that you're a Christian, but you believe in Jesus Christ, like it is through the name of Jesus that you will be permitted to heaven. If you believe that, then I just said, consult the Holy Spirit. I can't tell you whether to practice or not, because what is a sin to one man is not a sin to another. So it's funny because when I first started practicing, they came for me. The friends and family were like, that's demonic. That's da 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 da. And I'm like, man, whatever. And then fast forward, here I was sharing. But I thought, I do believe that per the word of God, there are some contradictions. There are. Like, I didn't make it up. Like, there are some contradictions.
Okay.
So,
right. So, yeah. and that's a whole nother story.
We don't even need to go there.
Right. But so you left teaching algebra to go and practice, because it's one thing to go ahead and go and do this devil's work, right? Or on this mat, this ungodly thing on this mat. But then to actually say, now this is going to be my livelihood. And you were doing it in a time like now, I think it's a little bit different because we got yoga everywhere. Yep. We as with a bunch of other careers, we have so now somebody can be like, oh, I'm gonna be a YouTuber. Parents, okay, I get that, because I see people making millions of dollars from it. And so, yep. But you were doing it at a time where it wasn't as popular, and especially, I thought it was a white woman's thing. Mm-hmm. Not only a white woman, but a skinny white woman's thing. From back in the day, fast forward to enlightenment. But how did you make that? How is that transition going to say, all right, I'm doing this now as a career?
Well, I will share that so I have a doctorate. I have a master's and a doctorate. And my mom was like, what are you doing with your life? Like,
give me my money back.
She ain't paid for nothing, okay? That's on this dime over here.
Mama.
But what was interesting is that I in making the transition, I actually assisted my teachers in a teacher training. It wasn't teaching classes. I would have never left just to go teach some yoga classes. Heck no. But what happened is I assisted a teacher training, and it opened my eyes to a whole new perspective of what yoga was and what was possible through this practice. And so after assisting them, I was like, that was in February or March. I was like, I'm not going back in August. Like, I'm not. And that is my teachers were like, what do you want your job to be? Create your ideal job title, job description, and let us know. And do you know, I made my job title exactly what I was doing in education as playing the role as an assistant principal. I wrote a rubric for yoga teachers. I wrote out training to be able to coach and give teachers feedback and train other people how to do that. Like, I created my job just like as if I was an assistant principal of yoga teachers. And they said yes. And I said, put me down. All right.
So
I'm there.
So you pretty much started the teachers training before you started training teachers almost. So you put it into practice, and then I guess it catapulted you into a space where you were training other teachers.
Yeah. And here's the thing. So in education, I did the same thing. I worked my way up from teacher to grade level chair, department chair, blah, blah, blah. Well, even now, when I think about it, I am not going to stop doing trainings. What it will become is more of a coaching model. I will give certification for wellness coaches because I'm skilled at that. That's what I do. I teach people to go out and teach other people. That's not that didn't come from yoga. That was there when I was a educator, a math teacher.
Mm-hmm. So where did this love for pouring into other people and helping them seek their better selves come from?
My mama. My mother, for sure. And actually, when the studio that I was working for, when they sold to Yoga Works, my response was, fine, I'll just open my own studio in my home. So I had a large enough home to be able to have a studio space in my home. And I called it the Connect. And I did a little video of it, of like why it existed and where it came from. And it comes from my mother. My mom took kids in all the time. Like, if someone ran away or someone like got into it with their parents, they knew they could come to our house. Like, our house was that space for people. It was like a safe haven. And so for me, I've always been a connector. I've always wanted to connect with people. And at the same time, I recognize that I am different, just different. Okay. And so people are naturally drawn to me for whatever reasons. I'm not making that up. People are naturally drawn to me. And I think what I had to do over that time of having that home studio and just learning more about my gifts is I had to get really clear about boundaries, which I think every yoga teacher needs to have training on boundaries, because for whatever reason, people think that yoga teachers are therapists and they're not. So it was like, I needed to, increase an understanding and awareness around boundaries. And then also just being clear about, like, I don't desire to make anyone be like me. That's not what I'm here for. Right. I'm here for people to learn how to be themselves.
The best you that you could possibly be, right?
Like, I don't need you to want to do what I do.
You were here for a reason. You weren't here to be me. And you don't want to be me.
Well, and that's the thing. So being this, I don't know, and someone could be like, Davina, girl, there's someone out there like that. But I don't know of any other Black woman who has led the number of teacher trainings that I have led, and who has coached who has like had the type of position that I had in the yoga industry. I do know Black teacher trainers, but I don't know any who have done the things that I have done at the level that I've done them. And I'm not saying that to boast. I'm just saying that in that positioning comes great responsibility, and comes the people with all the problems, with all the questions, who want the answers and think you have them.
Right. Right. And you, and going back to my experience with you and the BLM yoga training, you got that. You got those people with all the problems and all the questions. And you said you had to set those boundaries. And when you talk about these misconceptions that people have of yoga teachers, one of the, or just the practice of yoga, I think one of the major misconceptions is that it's super zen and, you know, nam myoho and ohms and all of that. And you were like, nah, that's not what you're gonna get from me. How do you, and the other part of it is going back again to yoga and how at one point it became the skinny white woman's space, and you came in and you're not no skinny white woman, you know, and so you came in and disrupted, in a sense, this space because you're giving them Black woman, you're giving them Black woman's curves, and you're giving them the
That Black woman
straightforwardness.
sass.
All right, you said it. So, and you're giving them the sass, or just this. I'm gonna call it flavor that
Okay.
comes in, but it's a straightforwardness that comes with that as well. So how do you I guess how do you find it to move like that in this kind of space?
Let me just share that cultural appropriation is real. And Black people and white people have culturally appropriated yoga. Bottom line. The problem that I have, and I'm not talking about Kemetic yoga, I'm specifically talking about those who practice the roots, traditional yoga from Hinduism. I'm not talking about Kemetic. I'm not even going to go there.
Okay.
And so the reason why I would get really challenged or triggered, especially during the BLM training, is because there was this false perception of what yoga was. And I'm like, y'all are on the surface of this thing. And because I am who I am, it's hard to get past that. But do you think that Patabi Joyce, do you think, and I'm going to say his name, but do you think Bikram, do you think these teachers were, hi, come to sit down, just relax your shoulders away from your ears? No, no, and no. They were direct, they were straightforward, and you did exactly what they were telling you to do. You did exactly what they, like, it's so funny that people think like yoga is this like Zen thing. It's like, no, 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 no. And then what makes it worse is now I know you haven't read about yoga. I know you read on Google, but I know you haven't read the sutras. I know that and forget the sutras. I used to love the sutras, but even beyond that, there's no way that you read the Gita and you thought that yoga was nice. He was out there having to kill his family. Okay. So, and the lessons that he learned from that was yoga. Right. And so for me, I'm like, oh, we don't know what the practice of yoga is, and we're culturally appropriating it. And then we're upset with this big Black woman who coming in here telling us X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, my hope is that the BIPOC community or the Black community, the yoga community, finds the benefits in the practice, because we do need rest. We do need for our mental health, like we do need that, but finds the pieces of the practice that resonate for them and teach and share that versus pretending to be some guru or pretending to know all, pretending to be able to do shadow work with people and like you're a therapist. And it's like, no, sorry.
All right. And so you, one of the things that stood out for me in your bio is you talked about how you love to help people grow, and you help them grow through love, support, and honest conversations. And experiencing you, honest conversations to me took on a whole new meaning. And probably because I've seen your interaction with people who who thought they were ready to have honest conversations, but they were not. They were ready to say things, and conversations are communication. It's a back and forth. And again, especially those honest conversations, because we have to look at ourselves first in these moments. So what does the honest conversation look like to you?
I mean, a huge part for me is around one, knowing your truth, and then speaking your truth with grace or not, but just being able to share authentically what you're feeling without outside influences and forces that are possibly influencing what you're choosing to say. And for me, when I have dialogue with people who are upset with me, and I can tell, I know they're upset with me for whatever reasons, where you lose me is if you come to try to tear me down or to attack my character or anything like that, you're never going to get the response that you want out of me. For example, and this is nothing related to yoga per se, but this is just general conversation. For a long time, my sister, my closest sister, when I would talk to her, this was in college, I was younger, y'all. I would say, "What's up, B?" ITCH, because that's how me and my homegirls addressed each other.
Right.
And I probably addressed her in that way at least a year, because she had just come to school with me. And one day she pulled me aside and she said, "Davina, it hurts my feelings when you call me BITCH." I was like, no, like my heart broke. And in that moment, I was like, I got to stop. So when you're real and you share of like, this is how it's affecting me, this is what it's making me feel, you're going to get a better response from me than if you're like, well, you said that, like, don't ever come at me like that. Like, I'm never going to succumb to that. I like to say, like, I'm that Black woman. You're never going to win. But unless you come to me like honestly and just and authentically and vulnerably and just share, like, this is what you're making me, this is how I'm feeling. And then I can say, ooh, then I have to check myself. Then I have to acknowledge, like, ooh, what did I say? What did I do? Did I really mean that? And I will be the first to apologize.
But also,
I don't have a problem with that.
But also, and Tonette says, come with the right energy, right? But there's also a space in there where you can't take what the other person is saying personally as well, and understanding that it ain't got nothing to do with you. This is because how I feel is how I feel. And what that means is that whether you call me a B or somebody else call me a B, it's going to feel the same way. And I need to allow you or give you the opportunity now to meet me where I am. And part of that is also putting up these boundaries.
And the thing is like, if you don't say the thing, like if that's never said that it hurts my feelings, then I continue to do it and I continue to cause harm. Right. So at least if it's brought to the forefront of the conversation, then we can wrestle through that. We can work through that, what that really looks like. And there are instances where people bring things to me and I'm like, I hear you. I receive that. And especially if it's something where they want me to change who I am so that they can be. That's where the line is, like, where I'm not okay. Right. If it's something that I can adjust and I'm like, oh, okay, like that's something that I need to work on, I'll do it. But if it is something, fundamentally something that's, important to me and a part of who I think I am and my essence, then I'm not going to go changing who I am, being wishy-washy because I hurt this person's feelings and this person's feelings. Like, no. Mm-mm.
And so you, again, I talked about you dropped this bomb. I wish I had sound effects. where all of this to come to the point now where you have, I was going to say hung up your mat, but I'm going to say you rolled it up to the point of possibly not unrolling it again.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I keep coming back to that, like, enlightenment. And I want to say the word, so I'm just going to say it, samadhi. Like, that's what we work towards. As if you call yourself a yogi, that's what you're working towards. And that supreme non-attachment. And so, and there's liberation there. I'm not, to me,
And so
the
samadhi
challenge,
is
it's enlightenment. That's the
okay.
highest level. And what is challenging for me is people who practice, for example, and say, I say they wrestle with anxiety or depression, and they say, like, man, I need my mat. If I don't get my mat out, like, it's rough. And I'm like, you don't understand what yoga is. If yoga is, and the reason why I say that is because I'm not talking about, say you just started practicing. Of course, you're going to feel good. It's going to be great, great. But say 5 years from now, 3 years from now, if you're still like, I need my yoga mat, like I need it in order to feel normal and not have anxiety and not have depression. Now you're using it as a coping mechanism. And then everybody who's hashtagging yoga is healing, is it? It didn't heal you yet. So maybe we try something else or shift our perspective around the practice.
I think that if we say, I think it goes back to what I say about us having this continuous healing journey. So it is healing in a sense because it takes you from point A to point B. And so again, going back to you, there was a point where it was healing because you had to take this journey that was a part of your journey in order to get to where you are. So it's like traveling, across
Right.
seas. So it's like, all right, well, you got to take the car to the airport. Then you got to take the airport, the plane to the place. Then you got to take the boat to the island. And then you got to take the donkey up the hill. And so it's a continuous journey. And these are a part of that healing process.
I feel that. I think where I'm challenged is where people are so gung-ho about the practice and get offended if anyone speaks ill of it, but then they're not acknowledging their attachments to it. And like, even in the work of the sutras, like there is a whole section that talks about if you are attached. It talks about what happens, like how you get lethargic and then you're like, I don't want to do anything. Like if you hurt yourself and you can't get on your yoga mat, if you have a problem because you can't get on your yoga mat, you're attached. Like this is in the teachings of it. So it's not like I'm saying this because I've been healed and I don't need it anymore. It's more of like, I just want people who are choosing to do the practice, not even do the practice, lies. People who are choosing to teach the practice or train others, they should be held to a higher standard.
Really? Really? Okay. All right. And so with this disruption, as a wellness advocate or a wellness disruption, I think what I hear when I hear wellness disruptor is giving you an opportunity to look at wellness differently, to look at, and even with the yoga, like that's what you're doing. You're saying, all right, this is what you thought it was. Now let's look at this differently. So how do you use your testimony in being a part of yoga or being so, and not just practicing and teaching, but so heavily involved in this industry and I don't want to say this industry, but this practice. How do you use that to help your clients move past some of the attachments that they have?
I mean, the work that I did probably for the last 3 years or so was heavily around this personal evolution, the idea of journeying through the self to the self. So journeying through your ego to self. And for me, self was God. That's that. I didn't make this up. It's in the Gita. It's also in other books. So this journey, that definition resonated with me. And so that's how I would teach, is like, peel back the layers. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? And then like test that thing, like get out there, experience life and see if what you're learning and experiencing, can you apply that off of the mat? Like, can you have this whatever open heart and just feel so loved and just feel so positive on your yoga mat, and then get in the parking lot and cuss someone out because you almost backed into them? Or on your way into class, they cut you off or took your parking spot. So for me, my work has really been about authenticity and that work of journeying through our mess. I love that God made me the way that he did, that he could build me up, and people absolutely put me on a pedestal of like, it's Davina and she da, 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 and then just like crumbled all the way to the ground. Like for some people, I mean, people unfollowed me, canceled me. They were like, done with her, don't want anything to do with her. And I love it. I love it because I'm like, you didn't need me in the first place.
Okay.
This life is not about the other people that you have idolized. The work is to go inward so that you can make that connection, or whether you make the connection to self or Holy Spirit, so that you have a guide. So you're not looking to everybody else to teach you how to walk and live, right? Like there's a guide inside of you. So
what was the biggest disruption? What was the biggest wellness disruption for you? Was it the yoga, or was there something else?
I think in terms of what I experienced, I would say in the last 4 years or so, I don't know that it was yoga. It was more of like, even before BLM, and people who knew me is like, she is unapologetically herself. It's annoying. Like it's frustrating sometimes. And so it would, for me, I think what is the greatest disruption is to be in a herd or a crowd of people. And then you got that one person who refuses to, follow along with everyone else. And I will tell you that social media, oh my goodness, social media and the societal norms that we have created for ourselves is like, don't be different. Like follow the trend. Do the TikTok dance that everybody else is doing. Like do the handstand challenge that everyone else is doing. Like follow the trend. And that's not me. I like, when I feel like I'm being put in that position, I will absolutely like ruin it on purpose.
Mm-hmm. All right. So here at Medicine4Melanin, we talk the topic, the name of the show rather, is How Y'all Healing. And How Y'all Healing is talking about what is in your self-care package. And one of the things that we learn is that it's not just one thing. It's a combination of many different things. So I want to ask you now, how are you healing? What is in your self-care package to help you along on your continuous healing journey?
Yeah. One, for sure, God, the word of God, like that's important to me. And being connected or being in spaces that I feel connected to God. So I posted something today about like plants, but like I feel like I'm a plant. I need water. I need sunlight. Like I need to be outside, nurtured, and being around people who love me and are not afraid to say that they love me. That's important. And just being able to, I still meditate. I still spend time resting. That's one of my favorite things to do these days, is just like rest. I don't work full time. I don't anticipate returning to working full time. I've been working part time for the last 4 months, like no more than 20 hours, 15, 20 hours a week. and I love it. So less. That's how I'm healing, by doing less.
All right. All right. So let's talk about Be You Be Well. What is Be You Be Well?
Be You Be Well is oddly a culmination of, or people would ask me, how are you? Like, how are you, Davina? And I would say, well, this and this and this. And the 7 pillars of Be You Be Well are essentially what I think makes me me, or their characteristics of what makes me me. And I think their characteristics would allow people to journey to being their most authentic selves.
Mm.
And it is an educational platform and community. So it's a membership, platform where we get to connect with each other. We get to learn through different resources, and do like fun, cool things, like just poetry jams, just different like conversations over dinner, like just real community.
All right. So I want to, we have maybe about 4 minutes left here.
Mhm.
And well, one, before we go, how just can you tell everybody how to get in contact with you?
Yeah. Oddly,
Because the other part you told me, oh, well, Instagram. But
oddly, my Instagram is private, and so is actually my Facebook page. I'm open to what I've been doing on my Instagram. Is if you friend request, then I will add you on there. But I'm being very intentional about people lurking in the shadows, judging and assessing, and not really being for me. Not that I need anybody to like root me on, but like I don't need people in my space. If you don't really like me, move around. Move. So they can catch me if they want socially and they want to actually interact with me. They can catch me. I am Davina Davidson on Instagram, and then I have my website. I am davinadavidson.com. And the Be You Be Well is the same on Instagram, and our website is beyoubewell.life, because we live in that life.
Awesome, awesome. And so with everything that we talked about, where do you see yourself going next?
Honestly, I see myself. I still have my nonprofit, and I do a lot of work through my nonprofit. Like I have lots of plans around like a school and building community centers around the world. So I have those kind of big picture things. And then I absolutely know, because I've had this vision for over 7 years, that I will have a bee facility where it will be more like bed and breakfast retreat kind of style situation for creatives, a place where they can come, and the bottom floor will be for work and the top will be more so living spaces. And so I know that that is coming down the pipeline, because I wanted to create it for people like me. If I had had a space like that, then maybe I wouldn't be maybe I wouldn't have had some of the interactions that I had, but I wanted to create a space like that
But
for
we
creators.
welcome those interactions, because again, it teaches us, and this is one of the things that I've said time and time again. First of all, the person who I am today is way different from the person who I was years ago. Because if I will meditate on you so fast, and that's worse than because of you, Al. Trust me. But like I don't argue with people or anything like that anymore. I choose not to. But I've gotten to this space because of all of the other interactions that I've had. And whether it's me interacting with whether it's me saying certain things to other people and treating them, and then in hindsight realizing that that's not the best place to, I didn't handle it in the best way, or other people treating me a certain way and me feeling that, and I'm like, yo, like I don't like the way that feels. And so if I don't like and this is something I had this conversation with my kids all the time. If I don't like the way it feels, then why am I going to do this to other people? So all of these experiences, all of these lessons, all of these failed trainings, or not failed trainings, but all of these, mishaps in the trainings and people calling you out of your name and having this conversation with your sister about not calling her the B word, all of these are a part of bringing you to where you are, and is a part of building up this be well space as well. And so, we welcome it. It's a part of our healing journey. All right, so before we get out of here, and we're a little bit over time, but it's YouTube, so we're not going to get kicked off like IG Live. So I want to play a quick game of word association with you. I have 5 words, and you can use 1 word. You can use 5 words. However, I'm only allowing you 20 words. So once you run out of 20 words, you don't have no more words. So you can use a phrase if you want. If you use a phrase with 5 words, that means you only got 15 more words. So it's more than just that one word that people be looking for. So 5 quick words. Yoga.
A journey.
God.
Everything.
Wellness.
A pursuit.
Samadhi.
The let go.
And finally, Davina.
I think I can use it. I'm going to say living outside the lines.
Got it. Thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, everybody, thank you for tuning in, whether you are looking at this live or you are looking at it on YouTube or on Facebook in a replay. And again, if you like it, feel free to share it with your family and friends, your followers. If you don't like it, feel free to share it with your family, your friends, your followers. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit the notification button on YouTube and join the community on Facebook. Thank you again, Davina. It has been a pleasure. And we're out of here, y'all. See y'all next week, every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on YouTube and on Facebook. Peace.
Peace.